Hey, Discipleship Groups, Matt here. This week we're going to camp out on Psalm 84. And the reason why we're going to camp out on Psalm 84 is I believe that the message of being a people that dwell in the presence of God, both individually and corporately, is something that we as a church, not only at Mandarin, but as a whole, need to hear. Like, it's significant when the people gather together. So in Psalm 84, that is kind of the central message. Even if you look at the heading, just something kind of a little tip, as you look at Psalms and it kind of says who's it's from. This is from a son of Korah. If you remember in 1 Chronicles chapter 6, I believe, we have Korah who's like leading worship for the Israelites. We see in 1 Chronicles 9, we see the sons of Korah are kind of like the gatekeepers into the house of worship. Also another reference, I believe, in Second Chronicles chapter 20. There's like a people who are like the descendants of Korah, who are kind of leading in this choir, so to speak, leading Israel in worship. All that to say, when you see son of Korah in like the heading, you should like jump to like, all right, this is likely about worship. And that's what this is about. This psalm is actually a psalm in response to the pilgrimage to the Feast of Tabernacles, as the people would be making a pilgrimage to Israel, or to Jerusalem. And so this is specifically about that, but there are things for us to walk around. You think about it, the sons of Korah were the gatekeepers, so to speak, for people walking in God's presence. These were people who valued being in the presence of God. And so they are saying, hey, how lovely is your dwelling place, you Lord of armies. I long and yearn for the courts of the Lord. My heart and flesh cry out to the living God. This is the heart's desire of the psalmist here, as they're making this pilgrimage and saying, hey, like, we desire to be in the house of the Lord. We desire to be in his presence, both privately and corporately. And so for us, like, it is really this is the theme that we need to walk away with. We see this illustrated furthermore as it's talking about, hey, the sparrows find a home and a swallow a nest for her, where she places her young near your altars. You're like, what does this have to do? Well, this is very poetic language to talk about, hey, like, even in the nooks and crannies of this great tabernacle, of this great place, like Solomon's temple had all these gardens and nooks and crannies and like walls and like little things where there was all these places where like birds and stuff would find. And so like this visual of like this big thing devoted to God, there's even space for the littlest of creature. We even see this, as when in the New Testament, when it's talking about, hey, I provide for the birds of the field, or the birds of the air, the flowers of the field. We see that illustration, and it likely kind of stems from this right here. So this illustration that like God provides and desires all to be in his presence. And the psalmist is saying, hey, I want to be near your altars, just like all these things that are insignificant are around you. I want to be where it happens. I want to be in your presence. And then he goes on to say, hey, how happy are those who reside in your house, who praise you continually. Verse 5 and 6 offer a really kind of unique picture that I think is really challenging and interesting. It says this: happy are those happy are the people whose strength is in you, whose hearts are set on the pilgrimage. So this idea, hey, how happy are those who, like, their strength is found in you. It's not in themselves, it's in you. As they pass through the valley of Baca, they make it a source of spring water. This is interesting because there's a couple different ways you could look at this, and there's several different interpretations. I all think say a similar thing. The Valley of Baca is a physical place that was along this route, so to speak, or that people would have traveled going to, and it was full of these trees that would kind of like seep sap and whatnot. That's one kind of, and so it was also called the Valley of Weeping, and because these trees looked like they were weeping. Also, as we've talked about in the past, as we read Psalms, when I talk about the valley or just the wilderness in general, these are places of chaos and conflict and things that are out of our control. So one of the interpretations could be, hey, this is the valley of weeping. These are really tough circumstances. Or we can just take it as like metaphorically, as this is just in the wilderness, in challenges. But in the midst of walking through whatever valley, wilderness thing it might be, we get to be a part of making it as a source of spring water. So you think about this, we're walking through whatever desolate or challenging circumstances. As people who are sitting in God's presence, who are seeking God's presence, we have the opportunity to make spring water come out of this because we're resting in the one who holds all things in circumstances. I just think it's a really cool kind of picture of what does it look like to be a person who seeks God's presence in the midst of a really chaotic and challenging world. And then the psalmist continues to go on and say, hey, talking about the different names of God and really just further to scriptures of his power and his strength and how he is a refuge. And to the verse that I think many are probably familiar with, better is a day in your courts than 1,000 elsewhere. I would rather stand at the threshold of the house of my God than live in the tents of wicked people. And so the psalmist here is just saying, hey, on this pilgrimage, as we seek to spend time with the Lord, being in the Lord's presence is significant, both privately and corporately. And I think for us, we tend to downplay the significance of gathering. Gathering, not just for the sake of being together, but gathering to be in God's presence. I don't know about you, but how many times have we looked at a Sunday morning and just thought, oh, this is another time to get together? No, this is an opportunity for us as God's people to be together in his word, worshiping, declaring he's great. The sons of Korah here are people who are around worship all the time, and they're like, we are not desensitized to this. We want to be about living in his presence. Would we be a people that would continually be about pressing into God's presence? Because as we do that, and as we will face adversity in life, as we rest in his presence, we get to be a part of creating springs in the midst of that so people can see and experience the presence of God themselves. And so I hope this is fun. I hope that you've enjoyed it, and we'll see you again soon.